When you finally make the decision to walk away from someone who has manipulated, devalued, and controlled you, it may feel like the hardest thing you will ever do, and I want to acknowledge that it is hard. It is painful. It is destabilizing. For many of you, it feels like you are leaving behind not just a person, but also the version of yourself that you thought you were in that relationship. You believed in the idea of love, loyalty, empathy, and fairness. You showed up with your best self, and instead of being met with gratitude, you were met with criticism, gaslighting, and neglect. That is the betrayal. That is the loss. And yet, when you choose to say goodbye, not the kind of goodbye that is filled with tears and negotiations, but the kind of goodbye that is final, resolute, and free, you are stepping into one of the most powerful acts of self-respect you will ever practice. You are saying, I will no longer give you the power to distort my reality. I will no longer sit in a space where my empathy is used against me. I will no longer sacrifice myself to keep you comfortable. Understand this? Narcissistic people do not process loss like most people do. They may not feel guilt the way you wish they would. They may not feel shame in the way that drives true accountability, but they will feel the rupture. When you walk away with clarity, when you stop engaging in their endless games, when you stop explaining yourself, defending yourself, or giving them the attention that has always fueled them, you create a silence louder than any argument. The most powerful goodbye is not loud, it's not dramatic, and it's not vindictive. It is quiet. It is steady. It is rooted in your recognition that you deserve peace. The narcissist may rage, they may smear. They may try to pull you back with promises, with pity plays, with sudden performative gestures of change. But your strength is not in responding. Your strength is in the consistency of your boundaries. That is what leaves them unsettled. That is what leaves them facing their own emptiness. I want to be very clear, your goodbye is not about punishing them. It is not about proving anything to them. Because the moment you make it about them, you are back in their orbit, trying to regulate their feelings rather than honoring your own. The goodbye that is most powerful is one that is fully about you, about your healing, about reclaiming the life that has been siphoned away by confusion and chaos. They may try to spin the narrative, telling others that you were the problem, that you were too sensitive, too needy, too difficult. Let them. You cannot control their story. You can only live your truth. And here is the truth. You survived something that was corrosive, something that eroded your sense of self, and you found the strength to walk away. That makes you powerful. That makes you courageous. In time, the guilt and the brokenness that the narcissist may feel is not the kind of moral reckoning we hope for, but it is discomfort. They are left with the loss of control, the loss of access to your empathy, the loss of the person who made them feel significant. And while they may never admit it, they feel that absence. But again, this is not your concern. Your job is not to heal them. Your job is to heal yourself. The goodbye is not just to them. It's also to the illusion. You are saying goodbye to the fantasy of who you thought they were, to the false hope that they would someday recognize your worth, to the cycle of highs and lows that kept you tethered to pain. That goodbye is where you start to rebuild. That goodbye is where you learn to trust yourself again, to listen to your own intuition, to validate your own feelings without needing their approval. And yes, it hurts. Yes, there will be moments when you wonder if you made a mistake, when you miss the version of them that once made you feel seen. That's normal. That's grief. But grief is honest. Grief is healing. Confusion, on the other hand, is what kept you stuck. And now, you are stepping out of confusion into clarity. So the most powerful goodbye is not about leaving them broken and guilty. It's about leaving you whole. It's about walking away without anger, without explanation, without apology. It's about recognizing that the closure you seek will never come from them, but it will come from within you. And when you carry yourself with that kind of quiet strength, they will feel the shift. They will know they have lost access, and that, in the end, is all the goodbye you will ever need. The most powerful goodbye is not the one filled with shouting, accusations, or long explanations. It is not the moment where you pour out every ounce of your pain, hoping the other person will finally understand what they did to you. That kind of goodbye often leaves you drained, unheard, and right back in the cycle of trying to get validation from someone who is incapable of giving it. The real power lies in the quiet goodbye, the goodbye that is steady, deliberate, and final. This is not about theatrics. It is about reclaiming your dignity. It is about walking away without giving them the satisfaction of knowing they have rattled you or the opportunity to twist your words into yet another argument. When you have been in a relationship with someone who thrives on control, conflict, and keeping you off balance, silence becomes your strongest statement. It denies them the fuel they are constantly seeking. Narcissistic individuals feed off your emotional reactions, whether it is anger, tears, or desperate explanations. They feel significant when they know they have gotten under your skin. When you stop providing that reaction, when you stop engaging in the performance they expect from you, you change the dynamic completely. You are no longer the person they can push and pull like a puppet. Instead, you become a figure they cannot predict, and that unpredictability unnerves them. A quiet goodbye is not passive. It is intentional. It is you choosing not to play a role in their endless cycle of provocation and invalidation. You are not suppressing your truth. You are preserving it. Because the truth is, they would never truly listen anyway. They would dismiss, deflect, or distort your words until you started questioning yourself. How many times have you tried to explain your feelings only to be told you were overreacting, too sensitive, or imagining things? That is why the quiet goodbye carries so much strength. It removes the need for their acknowledgement altogether. You no longer need them to validate your reality in order for it to be real. Walking away quietly does not mean you do not feel. It does not mean you are cold or unbothered. In fact, it often takes more strength to leave without saying everything you are burning to say. It is restraint. It is choosing long-term peace over temporary release. In that silence, you are communicating volumes. You are saying, I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I no longer need to beg you to see it. That message, even unspoken, is far more powerful than any angry outburst could ever be. The quiet goodbye also protects you. It protects you from the traps they set when they sense you are slipping away. The moment they know they are losing control, they may suddenly shower you with affection, promises, or declarations that they have changed. Or they may escalate into rage and blame, trying to bait you into defending yourself. Both tactics serve the same purpose, pulling you back into their orbit. But when you choose to leave calmly and consistently, without re-engaging in their chaos, those tactics lose their power. You stop being a participant in the cycle. Over time, That silence speaks louder than anything you could have ever said. They may feel unsettled because, for once, they do not have the last word. They cannot rewrite the ending to suit their narrative. They are left alone with themselves, and for someone who avoids self-reflection at all costs, that is a deeply uncomfortable place to be. While you are moving forward, healing, and building a life rooted in authenticity, they are stuck grappling with the emptiness that your departure left behind. But again, the quiet goodbye is not about making them suffer. It is about you choosing not to suffer anymore. It is about conserving your energy for your own growth rather than wasting it on trying to fix something unfixable. It is about trusting that your silence is enough, that you do not owe anyone a dramatic explanation in order to justify your decision to walk away. So, when you think of goodbye as quiet and resolute, see it as an act of strength, not weakness. It is strength because it means you have broken free from the need for their approval. It is strength because it proves you are no longer willing to be controlled by emotional chaos. And it is strength because it plants you firmly on the path of your own healing. In that stillness, in that refusal to fight, you reclaim everything they tried to take from you: your voice, your power, and your peace. When you decide to walk away from someone who has kept you trapped in cycles of manipulation, criticism, and false promises, it is very tempting to think about how your departure will affect them. You may imagine them regretting their actions, realizing what they lost, or finally feeling the guilt they avoided for so long. That is an understandable fantasy, because throughout the relationship, you were always hoping for accountability, for them to see the pain they caused. But the truth is, if you shape your goodbye around their reaction, you are still giving them control. You are still centering their experience instead of your own healing. The most powerful goodbye is the one that is about you, not them. This means the goodbye is not a performance meant to teach them a lesson. It is not about finally finding the perfect words that will make them change. It is not about proving your worth in the hope that they will finally see it. Every time you make your departure about them, whether through revenge, elaborate explanations, or hoping for their remorse, you are still tied to their validation. You are still looking outward, when what you need most is to turn inward. When the goodbye is about you, it looks very different. It becomes an act of radical self-preservation. It becomes a declaration that your mental health, your peace, and your dignity matter more than keeping the relationship intact. Instead of asking, "How will they react if I leave?" the question shifts to, "How will my life expand when I stop living in this chaos?" That shift changes everything. Suddenly, leaving is not about their pain or their guilt. It is about your freedom and your growth. Making your goodbye about yourself also helps protect you from the endless cycle of manipulation that often comes with leaving a toxic person. The moment they sense you are pulling away, they may attempt to lure you back with charm, promises, or dramatic displays of affection. If your focus is on them, you might be tempted to believe it, thinking maybe this time they finally understand. But if your focus is on yourself, you can see those gestures for what they are: tactics to regain control. You are less likely to be pulled back in because you are not measuring your worth by their sudden bursts of attention. You are measuring your worth by the commitment you have made to your own well-being. It also means that you stop waiting for closure from them. So many people stay stuck because they want the narcissistic person to admit the harm, to apologize, or to take accountability. But that closure rarely comes, and waiting for it only prolongs the pain. When the goodbye is about you, you stop waiting for them to grant you peace, and you start creating it for yourself. You realize that your healing does not require their acknowledgement. You give yourself permission to move forward without their cooperation. That is liberation. There is also a quiet dignity in making the goodbye about you. You do not need to prove that you are strong by showing them what they lost. You do not need to fight to rewrite their version of the story. They may tell others lies about you. They may cast themselves as the victim and you as the villain. Let them. The power of your goodbye lies in your refusal to engage with their distortions. You live your truth, and that becomes your proof. You build a life that reflects your resilience, your values, and your freedom, and that is far louder than any narrative they may try to spread. The goodbye that is centered on you is also sustainable. If it is about them, you may find yourself pulled into endless battles, trying to make them see your side. That is exhausting, and it rarely works. But if the goodbye is about you, you conserve your energy for your own rebuilding. You learn to pour that effort into relationships that are mutual, supportive, and safe. You invest in practices that restore your sense of self instead of wasting it on a person who thrives on keeping you small. This kind of goodbye requires discipline because the temptation to look back is strong. There will be moments when you want to check if they miss you, if they feel guilty, if they are hurting the way you are. But when you remember that the goodbye is not about their guilt, but about your wholeness, you resist that urge. You understand that your healing depends on keeping your focus steady. Every time you resist the pull to make it about them, you strengthen your commitment to yourself. Ultimately, the goodbye that is about you is the one that sets you free. It is not fueled by anger, revenge, or the need to prove anything. It is fueled by love for yourself, by the recognition that you deserve a life where you are not constantly walking on eggshells, doubting your reality, or begging for scraps of affection. That kind of goodbye is powerful because it is yours alone. It belongs to you, and it is the first step toward creating a life that finally reflects your true worth. Leaving someone who has thrived on diminishing you, confusing you, and keeping you entangled in their cycle of control can feel terrifying. For so long, you may have believed that your survival depended on staying, on managing their moods, on keeping the peace. But when you walk away, something profound happens. Their control begins to break, and instead of you being shattered, it is they who are left unsettled, grappling with the absence of the person who once gave them endless supply. That is the paradox of leaving a narcissistic relationship. You expect to feel powerless without them, but what actually collapses is their hold over you. Control is the lifeblood of a narcissistic relationship. It is how they keep you small, compliant, and dependent. Whether it was through subtle invalidation, constant criticism, or love, bombing followed by withdrawal, every tactic had the same purpose: to make sure you were never fully secure in yourself. As long as you doubted your worth, you were easier to manipulate. But the moment you decide that your peace matters more than their approval, the moment you step outside of that cycle, their structure begins to crumble. They lose access to the steady stream of attention, validation, and emotional energy that you provided. This shift leaves them feeling broken in ways they may never admit. They are not broken in the sense of remorse or deep moral reckoning, but broken in the sense that their system is disrupted. The person who once played into their narrative, who once accepted the blame, who once absorbed the criticism and kept giving, has walked away. And because they struggle to generate genuine self-worth, your absence leaves a void. The very fuel they relied on to maintain their inflated sense of self has been cut off. That is why your consistency in leaving, your refusal to re-engage, is so destabilizing to them. But the greater story here is not about their brokenness. It is about your strength. Leaving proves that their control was never absolute. No matter how much they tried to convince you that you couldn't survive without them, you did. No matter how many times they told you that no one else would tolerate you, you discovered that those words were never the truth, but simply another tactic to keep you tethered. The act of leaving demonstrates that the spirit they worked so hard to crush was never extinguished. It may have been buried under layers of self, doubt, and confusion, but it remained alive, waiting for the chance to rise again. There is power in reclaiming your boundaries after they have been violated for so long. Every time you say no to re-entering the cycle, you reinforce your strength. Every time you resist the urge to explain yourself to them, you strengthen your independence. And each time you choose silence over engagement, you weaken the grip they once had on you. That is how you rebuild your spirit, not in grand declarations, but in the quiet daily choices to honor yourself instead of the demands of someone who never respected you. Of course, there will be moments when the temptation to go back arises. The human heart remembers the good moments, the illusions, the version of them that once made you feel seen. But if you go deeper, you will also remember the chaos, the tears, the exhaustion of constantly trying to earn love that was conditional and fleeting. Holding on to that truth protects you. It reminds you that the brokenness you may feel in the early stages of leaving is temporary, but the brokenness they experience when their control is gone is permanent. They may patch it with new sources of supply, but the void remains because it comes from within them, not from you. You, on the other hand, have something they do not: the capacity to heal. Your spirit can mend because it was never inherently defective. It was wounded, yes, but not destroyed. With time, with self-compassion, with support, you can grow stronger than you ever imagined. That strength does not come from their validation, but from the recognition that you no longer need it. The act of leaving may feel like you are walking away broken, but in truth, you are walking toward wholeness. It is they who are left scrambling, trying to fill the silence you leave behind. The loss of control unsettles them, while the loss of their presence frees you. That is the shift. That is where the balance of power changes. And that is why the goodbye that you give, steady, quiet, consistent, becomes the most powerful act of reclaiming your life. What this all comes down to is reclaiming yourself. The most powerful goodbye is not about theatrics, not about revenge, not about trying to make someone finally see what they refuse to acknowledge. It is about stepping out of confusion and into clarity, leaving behind the illusion and choosing peace over chaos. It is about recognizing that your healing, your dignity, and your self-respect matter more than their approval. When you walk away quietly, when you make it about your growth, when you refuse to hand them back control, you break the cycle that has held you hostage. That goodbye is your declaration of freedom, your return to yourself, and the beginning of a life built not on their narrative, but on your truth.